groups, and we see that the Tin Lizzie company has gone down, and the Tin Lizzie people have been orphaned as their dealers have also gone down, and they are struggling with some of the concepts and the different tech things on the machines. So I worked with Tin Lizzie for 10 years and was one of the developers of the Butler computer. So I thought, well, I probably could help them. So I have a good background in long arms. So even if you didn't have a Tin Lizzie, or Tin Lizzie was rebranded several ways, Viking, Janome, Mega Quilters. So if you don't have that brand, a lot of this will pertain to the brand you do have. Dave and I've done this for 40 years now, quilted over 7,000 quilts, published 3 books with American Quilter Society on pantographs. I've been on a Create Channel and National PBS for 8 years with long arms. And I have been a tech, I am a certified tech for 11 different brands. So I can help you with most everything that you have on your machine, no matter what brand it is. So here's what we've decided to do during this pandemic. I'm going to do my classes by Zoom. I am today going to give free tips to get started with mostly tensions are the issues, and how to repair some of the simple things on machines. And then if you have a machine that actually needs to be diagnosed, if you will just email quiltcentral@outlook.com, then my daughter Ange will capture your phone number if you just say who you are and put a way to connect to you. They'll schedule you with a tech, so you can either FaceTime or you can do it by phone, and we'll go through the troubleshooting steps to diagnose what it is that that machine is needing. And so that's how we're going to deal with it, because we think there's quite a few of you out there that are struggling. So I'm going to get started now, and I'm going to talk for a few minutes on the thread path, and I am going to show you some things, and then I'm going to stop and see if there's any questions that we need to take. Then I'm probably going to take a tension assembly apart and show you how to change a check spring, because that is really valuable information and you can do this. And then we'll take questions on that too, and so on and so forth. And I'll see how far I can get through this in 2 hours. So does that sound good? Okay. So where you have a thread tree, and the Lizzies, there's LS Lizzies, DLS, and ESP Lizzies, and there's several different body styles on them. So there's more than one type of thread stand, but this is the newer one. And then the older one has 2 round discs where you set your 2 cones on, but the basics are the same. So wherever your thread starts from, you want the cone to be steady and not rock on the stand. And if you have a weird cone, which some people do, or your stands are not working well, some people cut a piece of sponge and put there so that it doesn't wobble while it's sewing, because we want the thread to be as steady as possible by the time it reaches the needle. They also make, I'll show you here, get this in the camera, Madeira makes, and we have, these are stands, and they have several different size rings in there, so you can set a small cone to big one. I just happen to put mine on a ribbon, and there's 2, but they fit on your peg, and then you're on the round ones, and then that helps to steady a cone too, because it needs to be steady. But you have a thread tree. Some of your thread trees have the arm, and some are more like this, and so they have on the tree a loop, and you try to thread in the loop that is closest right over the top of your spool. So if you're threading from this one, here, here, and there, and then when you have the arm that swivels on the other style machine, you be sure that your cone is underneath that arm, and that you thread generally for when you're threading to the front, from the back to the front. There are several different kinds of guides on the tops of the machines, but this guide is to help you to take the thread down and turn it to go the other way. And so you can use, to add or subtract tensions, you can use 1 or 2 or 3. You could use, if you want to add tension, you can wrap it around just like sewing through the holes, or serpentine it in and out, and it'll add a little bit more. But for what they call standard threading, we start here, and then if we need to add, then we can change the thread path as needed. Here's a 3-hole thread guide. Some of them you have seen, they point up, some down. There is a set screw on the top for a little slot head screwdriver, so if you did decide you wanted to change the direction of this for any reason, to keep the feed smooth, you could. And for this one too, I like to make it so that I go up and then I head down, and this one here is to 2 things. One, to take the jump out of the thread if you have a cone that goes jump, jump, jump when it comes off the cone. And some of it is also to add or subtract tensions right here. So and to change the direction so that you're feeding this way, and now we want to go down towards the needle. So you want this last hole, you want it to come down. So, and then I kind of hang on to my thread so that I have some flossing on it, and I can put it between the discs and floss. This Tin Lizzie has a foot. When you raise the foot on a Lizzie, there is a pusher pin inside that pushes the back of the tension assembly and spreads the discs. So when the foot is down, I've got some drag on this thread, and when the foot is up, it pushes the disc apart, just comes right straight through. It is kind of helpful to have that feature on there. One, so you can lift your foot to get over the edge of your quilt to get it started, but the feet are also spring loaded a little bit on some of them, so you can lift up a little bit and you don't have to use that. But if they don't have any spring to them, then raising it to get it on and off the cloth is good. So that pusher pin is inside, and if it ever falls out, there is a way to get it back in, and we can help you with that. And you can get it back in so that your raising and lowering of the foot is good. This guide on here, it's just above your tension assembly. This thread guide on a Lizzie, and some companies say thread differently. This one here is set at a certain place, so you don't need to monkey with that and slide it back and forth, and I'll tell you in a second. So on top of your tension assembly, which is this, there's a check spring. And when you, kind of working backwards here, through the check springs go up and down with every single stitch. And and then you go underneath the stirrup. This is called the stirrup. So you go under there, see, and that helps it stay in the check spring. If you miss this, if you don't get this threaded right, if your thread happens to be behind the discs, see if I can get in there. If it happens to fall behind and you can't see it, or you have a check spring that's not working well, have you ever seen this, which we call eyelashes? This is the back. This is the front. The front doesn't look too bad, but the back is full of long eyelashes, and they call that eyelashing. And then if you see down here, you can see the top thread is what they call railroad tracking. It's too loose there also. So this is also the similar area of tension, but the eyelashing is, people show that online all the time and they don't know why, and it's always right here. It's always right in this area if you're getting any sort of eyelashing at all. And then let's see if I can get this in this guide, or if I got to go up through it. This is a used machine that is going to be refurbished with some of the new kits that we have. So, okay, so this, you can see that check spring going up and down every single stitch. This one is kind of wimpy, and I am going to show you how to tighten it, but it might be wimpy because it's wearing out, and I will show you how to change that spring out today so that if you don't have a good one, you can get it changed. I'm going to grab a screwdriver here. There's a slot in the end of this, and the spring itself is anchored in the end back in the machine. There's a little tail on the spring, and it's in a little groove, so it is anchored. So if I take this and I turn it to the righty-tighty, just a little, that was like maybe a 1/16 of a turn, this spring has a lot more snap on it, and you can see now it's a little bit more to the top. The spring's in a slot on the tension assembly. If I can get that into view. Here's a check spring, and on here is a slot right there. And when you put this tension assembly into this hole, if you are taking it out and putting in a new, this one's pretty wimpy, that top of that slot, when this goes back in, is supposed to be at 11 o'clock when I put it in there. So that is at 11 o'clock, and it's not pushed in so far that the check spring will rub on the body of the machine. It's out just enough to clear it. So, but this is very much keeping the tension on your thread. Let me tell you how that works so that you'll understand what's going on here. So I'm going to move up to this next. We're under the stirrup. I'm going to try to see around here, not get in your way. So I'm through the and I'll roll that up and down. It's got a guard on the front, but you can see when I turn this that take-up lever, that is right there. And so this take-up lever, the distance of this stroke is measured at the factory. The distance of the stroke of letting the thread down and pulling it up. And this gizmo here, they set that slide in or out. So if they need a little more distance with your machine to let out enough thread to completely go around your bobbin area so that it can make the knot, if it's not long enough, they will slide that to another position. Or if it's too long and they're getting loops, they will pull it back. But that's really not for the customer to monkey with, and some just think it has to do with it staying in.
Someone wants to understand what's at 11.
Okay.
Not understanding what's at 11.
So this is a tension assembly, and it can come out so that we can change the check spring, which we're going to do today. And the way it comes out is, see on this one, where's my little set screw?
Down lower.
Okay, so there's a little set screw on your machine, and when you loosen it, this comes out like a cork. And the check spring is in a slot. Do you see the slot right? I can point to it right there. The check spring's in this slot. And the top of the slot, the top of that right there, when it goes back in to its hole, the top of that slot should be at 11 o'clock. So, and not so far in that the spring rubs the body of the machine. These springs, because they go up and down every single stroke of the machine, they get a lot of wear and tear. So they can break off, they can get weak, and you have to replace them. And most people got an extra one in their tool bag. And if you don't, I would suggest you get one. I mean, we sell them here, but they're not hard to get. And these are called universal springs because they fit a lot of different brands. But there's a million of them out there because they do make them for all kinds of Singers and Genomes and Vikings and Fops, but the universal one fits the long arm. So this is what the check spring is all about, and you don't want eyelashes on the back, so you are going to learn to adjust that thing. Okay, so then when it comes down, this guide here, this one is just to start steering it towards the needle. It also has a groove on the body of most of the Lizzie styles, and so you can actually, that follows right down in there and won't rub. And then there's a collar on the top of the needle, so there's a needle guide here on the, let's see if I can turn it a little bit. Do you see the hole right there? This is called a needle guide collar. And it's on there with that screw. And the little hole that's up here, that's called an inspection hole. So you can check and see if your needle is all the way up, if you can see that good. So it's a little harder. But anyways, some of you struggle to see that hole and to thread it. But if you would lower your needle guide, lower your needle, the guide's down there where you can get at it. And that'll save you getting down on your knees and trying to thread it. Get some fuzzies in there. And you thread it a little bit at an angle so it'll go in there. And then you're ready to thread your needle, which I'm not going to right now because I'm kind of fooling around with this. But so if you lost your collar, or it came off, or you lost the screw for this, they are available. So you can get that. So I would say make sure that you have it, because it just makes less threading and shredding and less breakage if you have all the guides on your machine. So now that I've talked to you about the thread path, I think I'm going to take questions if you have any about the thread path. So
if you have any questions, you can either put them in the chat box or you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask it.
I
guess they got it. Okay, so now we're going to take an assembly apart so you know how to replace that check spring in there. So I wonder if I actually get onto the white, if they can see better. You think? Probably. Okay, so here's what all entails to get a new check spring in there. So when you take something apart, you should take it apart in order and place it out where you can see all of it and you don't get the pieces mixed up. So this knob, and I'm going to answer some questions about this knob having numbers on it. This particular tension assembly with numbers does not relate to anything. But once you get your machine just tweaked up perfect, you might want to take a gob of red nail polish or something and put it at the top of your tension knob, as long as you're not taking it off and repositioning it. Because when these knobs, when you start them onto the threaded shaft on here, you can start them from several different positions, so the numbers never relate to anything. So I wouldn't worry about that. So I take it off. I'm going to place it towards the front, towards the ceiling. The front towards the ceiling. This is called a beehive spring. So you can put it there. Beehive springs wear out too. And some of you that have struggled to get your machines adjusted, you've crunched them down so tight in order trying to get tensions on them that it's actually ruined the spring. But the springs are hard to find somebody that has the right beehive, because they are different circumferences, I guess you could say, at the bottom of that. So they just replaced the whole tension assembly. And tension assemblies in the past, they've been $49. We're seeing them go up to $55 now because of the import stuff. So every piece that I take off, Okay, and I wanted to show you this too. These are the discs, and I wanted to show you the inside of that disc. See, there's a ridge. So some of you that have got your tensions adjusted to a certain point, the thread will jump inside the ridge, then outside the ridge, then inside the ridge, then outside the ridge. So your tension is good, then it's bad, then it's good, then it's bad. But if you would just tighten it, maybe a quarter of a turn to a half a turn tighter, it will stay on the inside of the ridge and not jump in and out and change on you. So that one goes up or down. That one goes down. Let me go back there. This one goes down. This one goes up. And now you see this shaft, it's stuck, it's in there. And this spring has to be changed, and it's a weird shape. Here's one of those check springs that's out. And inside that curl, inside there, you're doing such a good job, is a tail. And the tail has to be positioned correctly too. So I'm going to take this apart. So I got to have a little bitty screwdriver for this screw because that's how it's anchored in there. So and I'll put one in there. See, a little shaky today. I shouldn't have had so much coffee maybe. Okay, so and always do this over something like a piece of white paper or something. So if you lose that little screw out there, it's not in a rug and you can't find it then. Okay, so here's the shaft coming out, and when I turn this shaft, you'll be able to see the groove. There's the groove that the tail of this fits in. So if I had it together, which I'm just going to show you this just for a second. I don't know if I can, but when the shaft is in there and I turn this a little bit, it'll snag that tail. See, it'll snag it, and then it's anchored. So when I put it back together, that's what I'm feeling for. So there's the shaft is out. And then this is a little bit of a puzzle piece. And some of you have some different kinds of tension grooves, but this is the basic one that Tin Lizzie put out. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to pull the bottom of it out. And I'm going to do the puzzle thing, oops, to get it out. So now this is out. And I would put the new one in. So what I'm going to do is, I know I want this loop to face this direction. I'm going to put the wire in there, see, and then I'm going to tuck the tail in. And I want to be sure that I get that tail into that groove. So I'm going to put it in there and I'm going to feel for it. The screw needs to be just a little bit looser. I can feel for it. Okay, I got it in there. And this, I'm going to turn it and put a little tension on it so that the check spring stays at the top of the slot. So if it's not, it's, you know, it's off over here somewhere. But if I turn this, because the tail is anchored and I get some spring on it, this will stay at the top of that groove and it'll have some tension on it. So it's tricky to hold a little bit, but you hang it out, hang in there, and then hold it, and then tighten this on the shaft, and it will stay where you put it. So see, now that's anchored in there, right? So now I have some tension. If it was too tight, when you get it in the machine, like I told you before, you would be able to put a screwdriver in here and turn it 1/8 of a turn or loosen it 1/8 of a turn until you get it right. Let me give you a real example. So I sew with permacore thread. That's my favorite, but I like King Tut, which is a fat fuzzy thread, and it's also dry, so it has a lot of drag to it as it goes through the guides. And because of it being heavier and pulling through my guides tighter, my check spring is not always tight enough to keep a tension on that while my take-up lever is going up and down. Then it loosens and tightens, and it isn't always tight enough to keep. So what I'll see in my sewing is I sew along perfect, and then there'll be one at random loose stitch, and I'll like, okay, if I just tweak my check spring just a little bit, I can take that one stitch that's just here and there that's loose, and I can, and it'll be enough. But then if I go back to permacore, which is skinnier, I may not need all that tension on that. So then I might leave it and try it, and maybe I'll readjust it. So now I have a brand new spring in there. So now I can put my pieces all back together just exactly how I took them out of there. And don't forget any pieces. I've had people come in, their check springs look good. When they're missing something, they've and they didn't think working perfect. And right into that hole, and again, the top of this check spring, where the slot is, that top of that slot has to be at 11 o'clock. 11:30, something like that, on, so it'll be perfect. And then you're going to have to readjust your tensions because we've taken this knob off. So you're going to have to sew a little tension test. These little pieces of cloth that we have here, these pieces, I put on this, I pat on where my batting sticks out on my cloth on my long arm frame. And then I sew a little figure 8 and I roll it over and look so that I'm not doing my tension test on my quilt that I'm working on. And if I'm changing threads and using
Take a break and change your battery in your mind.
oh, okay, so
Say you're cutting in and out.
okay, so I'm going to take a minute and change the batteries on my mic and see how that goes. Okay, so just take it here.
Yeah, that's good. And then we have, yeah, sorry about that, Robin. Sue asked a question here. Does this help an occasional loop on the underside and otherwise good stitches?
What was the question?
You want to know if that takes care of an occasional loop on the underside.
It usually does. And when it's just an occasional eyelash,
Did you change the battery?
but when it's an occasional eyelash, it's very, it's so close. It's close already. So, do you think it was because I was leaning on it? Am I clear now? Okay.
Thanks for holding with us for the technical difficulties. This is the things that we're trying to figure out. It's a lot clearer when she uses the lapel mic, but
Okay, so is it good now?
seems better now. We'll let you
that's
know if it cuts in and out. And if it does, we'll just use the computer
I
mic.
might have been leaning on it, but I will see. These are the new things I don't know yet. So
Yeah.
we'll get there.
Yeah.
All right, so is everybody good? They can hear again?
There's another question. Dad, did she answer the loop on the underside? She answered that question. Sherry asked, what's the reference point for the 11:30 setting?
Hands of a clock.
Yeah, hands of the
You
clock.
just look straight on to the tension assembly, and
Whoops.
then that check spring.
So it's right here at 11 o'clock. Whoops. Right there's 11 o'clock. This is 12. Oops, I think it's showing backwards. And then 11:30 is over here. So see, the top of that check spring is there on this one. See the little stem. I don't know if you can see that, where it's coming off there. Yep, it's about 11:30 there. So that's how you get it back in.
It's the groove that the check spring is in. The top of the groove should be up at 11 or 11:30. And when you've run your machine for a fairly long time, the check spring starts to get weak, and then you'll notice occasional loops. So then you have to either put the screwdriver, turn it to the right a little bit, get a little more tightness on the little older spring, or change it.
Yeah. So if I was going to tighten it, I just stick this in here and I just turn it just an eighth of a turn.
Righty-tighty.
Just a little, maybe not even that much. And then because the spring is anchored in there, it'll stay tight. Angela? I got somebody at the door. So anyways, all right, so we've done the thread path and the tension assembly there. Any more questions this far?
I always
Yes.
use glide thread because I have never been able to get the tension set for cotton thread. What would I be doing wrong?
Okay, so we're going to go through a few more things on the tension. So you'll have lots of things to look at, but there is no reason in the world mechanically why you can't run every thread you want if it's a strong thread. If you take a thread, just a regular thread, and I'm comparing threads to your regular dual duty that you buy a piece with, wherever you buy it at Joann's store or whatever, and if you just take the thread and you break it, you will notice how tight, how strong it is. So if you are buying a wimpy thread, you're buying a wimpy one, then you're probably going to fight with it a little bit. And let me tell you about, this is kind of open to can of worms, but I'm going to try to get through it because it is very important to help you to run a wide variety of threads. Okay, so here's how it goes. So there's man-made threads and cotton threads, and there's blends too. But the man-made threads are heat sensitive, and so you don't want to build any heat in the needle. So let's give you an example. So if I'm going to do a competition quilt and I'm going to do metallic threads, which are very fussy and very heat sensitive, and they're stretchy, and I don't want any heat in the needle, I am going to use a poly batting or a washable wool or something fluffy, because if you use a cotton, a 70-30, an 80-20, or anything like that, we're going to have some problems with this, because when the needle goes up and down, it's going to build heat, and then right where the man-made thread goes through the eye of the needle, it's going to warm up, thin out, stretch, and break. So that's one thing when it comes to man-made threads. And it's kind of funny you say that glide is the only one that goes through your machine well, because the glide is also a man-made thread. But the difference between glide and some of the other products on the market that are very similar and made by other companies is glide has one more coating on it. It's been coated one more time. So it's a little stronger for a shiny man-made thread, and it's also runs through your machine slicker. So I'm going to tell you how to slick down the thread if you're running. I would guess that you are running very tight. So your bottom thread and your top thread, they have to lock in the batting. And if you are keep tightening, you tighten this one, then you tighten that one, pretty soon they're running perfect stitches. They look nice, but they are so tight against each other. So at some point, if you loosen the bobbin tension, which I'm going to show you next, and then loosen the top one to match it, you can have beautiful stitches and run through that fabric looser. So if your machine has gotten tighter and tighter and tighter, you may have trouble running some threads, but I think it's Magna Glide or Glide, and some of those, they usually are the fussier ones. So I'm really surprised that you say that, except for the coating and how slick they run through. So if you loosen up in your tensions and try other threads, and let me show you some of the solutions if you want to run your thread a little slicker. So if you took a dry thread like a King Tut and you wanted to run this, and you've been running this Glide all this time, so here's a couple of things. So they make silicone. So see, we fill our own because we buy, the big containers, and then we divide it up. Silicone is an evaporant, but it does not stay in the thread or discolor your fabric when it gets on. And the big factors, like my background is my mom was a fashion designer, so I got to go to the factory with her on Saturdays when she was fixing her patterns. So when they cut on Monday, they were going full speed. So they used this all the time, but they had buckets of it, and they dipped the entire cone in it. Some people will squirt a stripe because it has a squirter on the top here. So they'll squirt a stripe of it. Or if you're going to use a lot, and the tin Lizzie's did not come with what they call a thread lubricator, but I'm going to show you one that does fit. This one is, this is like a $28 thread lubricator. So we sell these here. So this is see if I can get into view here, Art. I'm going to go right here because this is where they go on the Lizzie's. On the tops of the Lizzie's, there's always something that's got a screw on it. So you can see that this is a stand, and the thread lubricator goes on the stand. And it will, and it
Can you
be
get
turned.
the video a little closer there? Can you zoom in a little bit
Get in
more?
a little farther? Okay, good. Okay,
Thanks.
so this fork on this end, there's a screw on this particular machine on the back that holds this on. So I would take this up and I would slide that little fork under and put the screw back in so I have a stand. And then this sits on here, and I'll show you how the lubricator works, but you can rotate it because a thread has to pass through it, and the jar is filled with silicone, so it'll wet that thread down and slick it through and get rid of the fuzzies and make a heat sensitive thread cooler and that. So these, yeah, come on really close, Art. Okay, so I'm going to open this so you can see. So there's a pad in here. So when the jar is full, the pads are soaked with silicone. And then these, where this purple is on both sides, that's where my thread, I would pick this up and my thread, see, would pass through. See, I would put it in the grooves. So when I slam the lid down, then it'll wipe across that silicone. It'll wet that thread. It'll slick it through. It'll keep it cool. You can run all kinds of threads, but that's how you get them onto a Lizzie. Is you have to have this style because they make another style that's magnetic, but the Lizzies have so much aluminum in the castings, you can't find a decent place for them to sit. So that's what the thread lubricators are. So this is the kind of things, like if you are running a wide variety of threads, it's nice to have one of these, and then you can put it on or take it off or fill it up and use it when you really want to slick a thread down and run a wide variety of threads. And this is how you get this, because I don't even think I got half these things on my website yet, is you just email Quilt Central at Outlook and tell Angie over there to give you a call, and then she packs the orders and ships them out. So so that'll.
I have a question here. Do you use this with all threads?
No, only the fussy ones, or the ones that I want to cool or that are fuzzy. You can use these with all if you wish. They do add a little more tension to what you're doing, so you'll have to adjust for that too.
Okay.
But that's
And
what these are
how much
for.
does that cost?
Okay, so this one, you can see this one's 28 for this style one, but it's the only one that really fits the Lizzie's good. And then these, the lubricant that goes in there is, I don't know if you can see that on there, $12.50 for that, for a bottle of the silicone. So, which is less than if you buy little bitty bottles. So, so that's what those are for, to help you run a wider variety of threads. Was there any other questions?
Yes, we had one that asked about twisty threads. She has
Oh,
trouble
yeah.
with it twisting
Oh yeah, good question.
from the cone to the needle.
Okay.
That's why I tossed you those.
Good. And maybe before you go to that question, does the lubricator fit an A1 machine that you just showed?
The A1 machines come with their own lubricator on them. They're located down by the needle, and it's a little horseshoe piece that holds a white felt, and you just soak the felt. So if you don't have the felt in there, we sell those for $5. So you can, in the meantime, you could stick a ball of cotton in there and soak it. We've seen people tape a ball of cotton to their machine and run their lubricants that way too. But then also the socks, you put socks over some of your stuff. Like this has, these are the little thread socks. You can get them anywheres. Ours are 2 for $3 or something, but I can cut them in half. So here's a thread. This is a blue metallic thread, and this, when it comes out of the sock, see, it'll straighten out. Okay, so the ones that are a problem to run, mostly because now I'll tell you how to tell a good metallic from a bad metallic for a long arm. So domestic machines like Viking, Janome, Pfaff, and all those, they can run almost any metallic because they're running really slow and it doesn't really build much heat. And you can control what you're sewing a little better. But with the long arm, you're going fast and you're all over the place. So when you feel of a metallic thread, it has to be smooth. If it's not smooth and you can feel ribs, it'll ruche up the core, because the way this thread is made is it has like a Dacron core to it, and then the metallic is wrapped round and round and round the outside. So if it's not made real tight, it's ribby, and as the needle goes up and down in your machine, then it'll make the outside ruche right up that core. So this is a really tricky thread to run. We have found the best one on the market for long arms, and we have it here in the store in 14 different colors. But you know, we're a long arm academy, so we have a lot of things you don't see other places. And I'll show you the top. So people say, well, what brand is it? I don't know, because I don't read Chinese, so I don't really know so what brand it is, but we get it from a distributor. And like I said, we have it in 14 different colors. And so if you're interested in getting a red one for Christmas or gold ones, and that we take snapshots with our cell phones and send them to your cell phone so you can see until we get an improvement on our website. You know, Dave and I have always been trade show people, so we haven't spent so much time at home as we have lately, so we haven't fixed our website to carry all the things that we do for long arm repair and everything. So, but we have just about everything from soup to nuts. If you just call and ask, we have it. So, or if you email quiltcentral@outlook.com and just email and we'll answer you. And we like to have it by email because then we know that you've sorted it out in your head well enough to type it in or send us a picture of, and then we can help you with that kind of stuff. So so let me move on just a little more, unless we have any more questions. No? Are we doing good? Are you getting bored and falling asleep?
Really good.
Do you need to get a cup of coffee?
They're saying good. Several people, Janie, are really wowed by how much knowledge you have.
Okay, so now I'm going to show you this part because, like I said, the bottom thread and the top thread have to lock in the batting. So you have to get you set your bottom tension first, and then you match the top one. So on your tension assembly, you're going righty-tighty to pull it up, and you're going lefty-loosey to let it down. And a lot of people don't understand that you've got to sometimes go 2 and 3 times all the way around to get it close. And once you start getting close, then you just do a half a turn, and then you get close. You do a quarter of a turn, and then we get close. You do an eighth of a turn, and you tweak it tighter and tighter all the time. But I'm going to take this part of this apart now. Oh, and I want to talk to you a little bit about tools. And I don't want to offend anybody because I know some of you already have tools, but I think that you have to have your own set and keep it with your machine and find the ones that work for you. And one day I'll go over my tool bag and show people what I have, because I have an odd batch of tools and I like them just the way they are. And my husband borrows mine, so as long as you're down here, I'm going to show you this. Do you see? This is one of my favorite. They're Swiss, and I have to buy them online. But do you see I put nail polish on the bottom? And that's because Dave takes my stuff. So I put nail polish, a sparkling one, on my
Mhm.
tools. So and this one here, this littler one, same thing. So then if I'm missing something, I go to his toolbox, and that's where I can find them. Or if they're in the store, and you always wondered why my dad would yell at me if I didn't put my tools, his tools, I should say, back in the toolbox at home when I was a kid. But the thing about it is you get so that you know that the one with the you know, you'll know that if you have one that's a little different, what that fits. Like this one's got a dipped handle on it, so I know what that fits, and you will be able to reach for the right screwdriver all the time. There's another reason I like the Swiss tools, and yes, you pay more for them, but you see they're numbered, and they have, that one's a slot head, which means that this end is a slot, and you can see it's darker because it's hardened. Like if I pay $1.99 to $5.99 for a screwdriver, I get to use it just a couple times and it's all bent up. But sometimes I have to pay as much as $16 for a screwdriver and get it shipped to me. But these Swiss ones, the grip fits good, and also this narrow place right here. So if I can't turn a screw, I can put pliers on that and got a handle sticking out so I can push down and I can get it loose. So so there's certain tools that I like, and I think you should have good ones and keep them to yourself and mark them with nail polish so nobody takes them. Okay, so now I'm taking this throat plate off. So this hasn't been off for a really long time. It's really dirty, this throat plate. And so you have to take off and clean every once in a while, but this hole, if you've nicked it up with, and it's full of needle nicks when you look through there, you're going to have to clean that hole up. But you can't keep doing that forever. There's sometimes when it's so nicked up that you're going to have to actually buy another one. And I want to point out here, this has a right side up. See the holes right here where the screw goes? They're beveled on the top and not beveled on the back, so that when you take your screw and drop it in there, when you from the top, you see it's smooth now, so you can sew and not have it sticking up. So if you put it on this side and you got your plate on upside down, your screw's going to stick up. It's going to hang threads in the back and cause you a problem. So and then if you lose these screws, they are a completely different thread than you would expect. They are a finer thread. And so if you think you're just going to go to the store and get a screw or find one in your toolbox that fits it, probably not too likely. So you might want to either buy from a dealer that has throat plate screws, or get a couple extra ones in your tool bag in case you lose them. Or you can take your one of these screws like to a place like Fastenal or Menards or Home Depot, and they have people in that department where they sell all their nuts and bolts and screws and stuff, and they have a little board, and you can thread it in and see if it's the right one, and don't force it, but you can actually find the right number and the right thread that way. But this is an expensive machine. You don't want to put the wrong screw in there and then not have your throat plate be secure, right? So so that's good. And the other thing is sanding it. Okay, so this is emery. Okay, so this is emery. We sell it on the roll, and it's made on a piece of cloth. Let me tear a piece so you can see it's not regular sandpaper. So see, it's cloth, and a little piece like that will last a really long time. And what it does is, if you sand a hole on a thread plate, if you sand it, you don't have to sand it very much to get the needle nicks off of it, and it won't create more scratches, so you'll be worse off than when you started. So if you start to use wood sandpaper, you're going to have trouble. And if you can tear this into little bitty strips and you can roll it. We also sell emery on a cord, so if we are trying to get some of the burrs off something in a machine, we have it. But if you roll it See, I rolled that. I can turn it, and I can get the needle nick out of there. So needle nicks, you need to check for that because that will cause breakage or shredding. If you break a needle, you're probably got a nick somewheres, and that's the best way to get it out. So take care of your throat plate because I don't know how much longer you'll be able to get standard throat plates because they just make, there's just only so many Tin Lizzie parts left. Okay, so let's talk about the bobbin case. I'm going to take it out and I'm going to talk to you about this piece because this is the other, where can I go so that I don't have art jumping all around here. I'm going to try to stay right in, I guess I better get over the little white cloth and then I can stay in one place and it'll be easy for Art to zoom in. Okay. I wanted to show you this one in particular because here is one, and that little black thing in there, that is called a backlash spring. And its purpose is to stop your bobbin from coasting. So if you are sewing to a point of a leaf and stop and then change directions fast, the bobbin doesn't continue to go whoosh and throw a loop. So you can sew without it if you're using a dry thread, but if you're using glide or something, those are slipperier threads and they're more likely to throw a loop. When these wear out, they begin to hump up. See this one here? This backlash spring is no good. Do you see how much there is? So when that goes in, there's too much pressure on it. So this backlash spring is either wearing out or it's in there incorrectly. So I'm going to take this out and we're going to look at it. So you can see that spring. I don't know how to get that turned so you can see that it's humped up in there. It's humped up enough so my screwdriver even fit underneath it. Can you see that? All right, so I'm going to pop it out. So I've taken it out. And I'm going to show you that on this piece of cloth here. Okay, because I want you to see some things about it. So I'm going to try to tip that up a little bit so they can see. Do you see that backlash spring has 2 ears on one side and 2 ears on the other side? But those ears are not spaced the same. They're not. So this is only going to go back in that case a certain way. So on these, can I get this in view somewhere? Down here. So on your bobbin case, over here, there's the slots for one, and on this side, see, there's the slots for the other one. And if I take this and I take the ones that are far apart, there's no way that's going to fit in that one. So I know that those 2 wide ears have to fit in this one over here. So this can only go down this one way. So if these ears are not bent, this one's bent a little bit, but we'll see if it'll go in or if I gotta have a new one. So, so it only goes one way, and I'm gonna turn that, and I'm gonna try to get, I have to see it too, my 2 ears on one side, and then poke the other side down and get them in there so that and we'll see if my ears are ruined. So when this goes back in, this is the same bobbin. See the spring on it? It's almost nothing. That's how it's supposed to be. It's just supposed to give you a little bit. You see it's not humped up anymore? Because I think that one was in backwards. So the ears were keeping it where it wouldn't go down. So it's got a little pressure on it. You can hear there's a little gap in there, but not a big one. Does that make sense? Hope so. So that's what that's for. But if you lose your backlash spring, don't sweat it. You can run without it, and you can you get another one in there. You can also put one drop 1 drop of oil in there every once in a while. Whoop. So-
Jamie, here's a question from Robin. How do you know which is the top of the spring?
Okay, so we'll try that again.
One side's flat, so it has to go the flat side.
See the 2 ears over here are far apart, and the 2 ears over here are close together. And the holes that are cut for it, these 2 ears over here are holes, but they are not wide enough. They won't fit. It won't fit in there. It's just too, but this side is cut for the wide ones. So this has to go down this way, and your opening has to be up here. So if this was a little man with arms on it, it has to go in there so that he's heads up. So can you see it? Good. Okay, so then it's this way. The big wide ones are on this side. Wait, it goes this way. And the narrow ones are on that side. So this is important. You need this if you're running slick threads in there, and it comes with it. So was there any more questions on that piece of the puzzle?
How do you know which is the top of the spring? Yes, but can it flip over?
You can't flip it over. If you flip it over, the ears won't go in to the holes because the big ones won't go in the small hole. This side, the holes are small. These 2 ears that are so far apart, they won't fit in there. You'll bend them up and it won't work. There's only one way. It can only go in one way.
Okay, and then what about, magic bobbin?
Oh yeah, let's talk about the different kinds. This is the kind that probably came standard in the Tin Lizzie, and that's why I'm showing it today. They're easy to get. They're standard in a lot of machines. Gamma makes one that's football shaped, and some companies make them out of silicone, different kinds of rubbers, and some bobbins, some from Filtech. They come with a little magnet on one side, so you don't have to, you take the spring out and you're using the magnet to keep a little tension on that bobbin from coasting. So that is, so there's all kinds, personal preference. You just use whatever you like, and you can experiment and see what you like with different things. This is the one the manufacturer recommends for Tin Lizzie. Or A1.
For using aluminum bobbins.
Yep, for using the aluminum bobbins. That's the other thing, is there's different style bobbins out there. Bobbins that are aluminum. This is the one for the Lizzie standardly because it's got a slot on one side. And when I go to show you the bobbin winder, you'll see that it's got a pin on the bobbin winder, and that fits it. But you can also use the ones that have no slot. Here's one with no slot. So that's a no slot bobbin. You can see they're just identical, except one is actually made to fit. Let's see. One is made to fit over the bobbin winder and one not. And then you have the other kinds of size M bobbins that have holes cut in them. Some of them are Teflon and they're black and stuff like that. But these run cool and smooth and quiet. Other ones have all the holes cut in them to cut away some of the weight. So these aluminum ones are light. And so that is why we now prefer the aluminum ones to most of the other ones. If you have a Gamma, you're running ones that are heavier with the holes punched out on both sides. The brown ones run slicker than the black ones. And they are weighty because the Backlash Spring that's inside the Gamma bobbin case is football shaped and does not react exactly the same as the one that is in your machine standardly. And so they use a heavier bobbin and it just runs better in those Gammas. So that's how that goes. So machine brand to machine brand, some things can work differently. Was there another question?
Oh, I think we're good to go for now.
Okay, so I guess I'm going to show you how to set the tensions on your bobbin case, and I'm going to try to get through the bobbin winder first. I didn't know how long I would be gabbing and how many questions I'd have. Okay, so this is a standard Tin Lizzie bobbin case. Well, this one doesn't have the backlash spring in it, but it's standard Tin Lizzie because you see the pigtail on it. So the pigtail is to add or subtract tension. This style bobbin case has come off of an embroidery machine. So let me tell you a little about how the Lizzies were developed. So Bill, the granddad, he built the very first stretched machine for his granddaughter Lizzie. So Bill took and chopped and stretched and wrapped tin around the gap for Lizzie, and Lizzie ran that machine about 3 years, and it was a good one. And Bill was really good at this because Bill lived in San Diego, and he serviced the industry, the garment industry in LA, because it's just south of there, his place. And Bill was an expert at what he was doing. So those first Tin Lizzies that came out were really, really nice. And then one day the family said, let's have a casting made for that and take it out on the market. So Ernie took it out to the first trade show, and he sold like 8 of them. He was so excited. He called his dad and he said, hey, you know, I think we got something here. So, and Ernie was really, really good with machines too. He was wonderful. And then later on, this went to the son, Josh. But this development of this Tin Lizzie, this actually was quite a good machine from the get-go. And so they were acquainted with other styles of bobbin cases. So this particular bobbin case came from an embroidery machine, and a lot of embroidery machines, when they sew, they're like, they go left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. So the thread is jerking around a lot. So this would steady it. So when they put their, typically we take our bobbin, and it's shaped like a number, I don't know if that's backwards on the camera, but that's a number 9. So then you drop that in your case, down the little path, under the tension strap, and then you can add or subtract tension with that pigtail. Let's see if I can get that in there so you can see it. You can stay steady, Art, and I'll try to get it in the picture. Okay, so, all right, so, okay, maybe this way I can get it. Okay, so when I wrap it twice, it comes out the end of the spring, that extra spring, and there's not a lot of tension added. But if I wrap it only once through that spring, I hooked it myself, through there once, it comes up in the middle, then there's quite a bit more tension added to that. So you cannot use it and twist it twice and have it come out the end, or have it once and it's caught in the spring. If that makes sense, what that's for. It's for control. It's for added control. So that puts the thread right where it needs to be picked up. So I'd say from the Lizzie people that I've talked to, 80% of them use it, and the other 20% never use it or didn't know what that was for. So anyways, so I'm going to use it, and I'm going to, okay, so then I should talk to you about this strap that goes across here. This strap is called the tension strap, and it's held on with that little bitty screw, and it's adjusted with this one here. And that is such a screw. It only has 2 threads on it. Really doesn't hardly go in there. So monkeying with it better be over a piece of cloth or a piece of paper, so if it falls out, you don't lose it, because if you've lost it, you got to buy another case, because you can't usually get them. Dave and I have a limited number of those here also, but you got to get the right kind of screwdriver. to fit in there. Some people, their thumbnails fit in there, but it's righty-tighty, loosey. And what you're looking for is you want, see, I'll leave it out of the tension, out of the pigtail for right now. So if you stand it up and try to lift it and then shake it, it should drop. So this is way too tight in the beginning. So, so I'm gonna loosen it. See if I can. I got a video up on this, but it doesn't show it that close. So Art's doing a good job. So, so my goodness here. Still too tight. So looser yet, because I don't want to add any tension. There, so if I shake it, see it's starting to drop. Okay, for those of you that don't want to do it, I guess you could say manually, they make gauges. See the gauge? So some of you have these and you don't know how to use them or what they're for. But let me show you how this works.
Yeah, Sue asked, do you recommend the TOA gauge?
It's only if you don't know how to get it this way. You know, if this is too hard for you, or if you're changing threads a lot, you might want it. You know, a fair share of you long armors are perfectionists, and some of you are it's okay if it's working. So it just depends who you are. So I've got the bobbin in there, and it's a full one. So I'm going to put it into the gauge and snap it in, and then serpentine it through these. I'll try to tip it up. Serpentine it through the there, and then hook it under this little finger that's in the bottom. And you're supposed to have it flat, so I see what kind of a reading we'll get. So when I pull this, should be about 230, which is standard. But if yours, and gauges can vary, so I've had people, they said, mine runs at 180 all the time. Mine runs at 250 all the time. Don't go by what it's got to be for your machine. So that's how the gauges work. So gauges are going up too. They run around $100 now. They used to be half that. But I guess I'm just lived through a lot of changes and surprised at the price changes. So I guess for me, I would loosen this just a little bit more, because I like to run not too tight. There. So if I shake it, so then, and I wanted to show you a couple more things. I know I could talk for weeks, but so this little flapper thing, I guess right now, because I got it set for this, is my pigtail, like I thought I was gonna. So, but anyways, I can hang on to this, but when this, then see if I can show you this. Inside of a hook is a shaft, and around the shaft is a groove. See the groove? And this snaps on to the groove. See, my piece is moving. It's when you have it on your machine, that's stationary, and it snaps in, and you can hear it. And if it doesn't snap in, you're not in all the way. And if you're not in all the way, this can jiggle back out, and then bam, you'll hit it with the needle and scare yourself. So, so anyways, this particular, so if you were hanging onto this flapper thing here, you're taking the spring off of it. So as you stick it on and off the shaft, there won't be any click. But if you let go of it, it will. So if you're one of those and you're positioning it by hanging onto that, let me take one apart to show you a little bit more of that. So let's see if so you can understand a little more about this. Okay, so here's one here, and if I take the flapper and I could take the handle or the flapper piece off. I'm going to stay in this spot for a little bit, Art. Okay, so that is the handle, right? So then this piece comes out. See? And now let me show you where the spring comes from. There's a hole right here, right there. See that little round hole? And watch the spring come out. See how tiny that is? That's the tiniest little spring, and that's what's given that the snap on your. So if your handle breaks off and you're fooling around, you can lose that into your rug somewhere and never find it, and then you can't put it back together and have any spring on it at all. And then it won't work right. So so if you snap the handle off of it by accident, then you better be careful and get over a table or something so you don't lose that spring. So this little spring actually goes down that little hole right there, and then this slides back in, and see, there's the spring. And then I'm not going to do this right now because oops, did I lose that myself? No, it's in there. So the spring is in there. So when I push hard, this hole opens up, and the little T on the end fits in the hole, and then I twist it, and I can get it back into place. So I that against a table kind of weak, and that would be kind of awkward here in the. This hole. Okay, so the spring goes in. Put that hole, and then this slides in. And you see the hole in the middle, that's the hole that snaps onto that shaft. So when you push it in, that's what's going snap. It snaps on and it hangs on, it'll stay in. That's how it works. Does that make sense? Does everybody get
Leaning
this?
against that table hard.
Okay.
Say you're cutting in and out.
Okay, so I'm on my cord now. Yes?
Is she okay?
She's cutting out again
Bathroom
for some
break.
reason.
Brand new battery.
Oh yeah, it's blinking on and off. Okay,
Yeah,
just
it's cutting
bear
out.
with me.
Of all the pieces of technology we're using, the lapel mic is the one thing that's breaking down
Lean
that.
on that, and I need to put that in my back pocket because I got plenty of battery, I'm pretty sure.
It's
So
weird.
that's what I'm doing is I'm
Oh,
getting
you
this.
sound better now. We can hear you now.
I need to try that somewhere else because I'm leaning on it. You can get that in my pocket, Angie?
That
Okay.
better?
Yep. So am I okay now?
I think
okay
it's
now?
better. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is
thank
good
you.
because those are the things I need to know if we're going to teach a longer class. So let's see, where was I? Okay, so I showed them how that worked and how this works. So I'm kind of lost my train of thought here.
Hooks.
Oh yeah, hooks. Timing. Okay, so anyways, so once you get your bobbin case set, then you can do your top tension, which is here, and you sew a figure 8. So I'm going to show you this piece of cloth. So, okay, so here's what I sew. I sew this shape. I sew this kind of shape because you're sewing every direction. So this says tension test. So on your little patch on the side of your quilt where it's not going to affect anything, you put a little patch of similar fabric and sew this little figure 8 thing, and you'll roll it over and look on the back, And if it's got the top thread to the back, you have to tighten righty-tighty your tension. And if it's the other way around, you got to loosen until you get this perfect tension with this. And fabrics make a difference. Batiks are a higher thread count. Sheets that you buy for backing are a higher thread count. Fabric that you buy for quilting is a lower thread count. So whatever you're sewing over, it makes quite a bit of difference. Oh, I was going to talk to you about bobbin winders if I can squeeze that in. Oh, and I'll show you this piece of cloth too. Let's say, Art, can you see, get a shot of that back up a bit? Okay, so this is a training piece for Tin Lizzie's. And what it has on it, it has the Tin Lizzie machine in the middle, pictured, and it has the numbers. See, where am I at here? Yeah, it's the Tin Lizzie's in the middle. It has 40 numbers on it. It has a listing of the 40 parts of the machine. So you should know these parts, because if you call a tech and you tell them, hey, you know that little thingy that's over here on the side? I'm having trouble with that. The tech has no idea until they see a picture. But this is a training piece, and I'm going to do what I call it hands-on at home. So the actual sewing part, my state won't let me have my classes in here yet. So we have developed 12 different classes that are printed on fabric like this. So you will buy the kit from me if you're interested, and then go home and pin it on to your machine, and then I will do a Zoom just like this, and you will sew and I will show you, and you will sew, and back and forth. So it's just like you're having a classroom in your own sewing studio. And so I think these will work out good. They are super informational. This one is built for Tin Lizzie's, Mega Quilters, Viking, Janome, anything that was built by Tin Lizzie in the beginning. So this is class number 1, shows you how to bring up your threads, not get bird nest, meander, do your thread test. It has an encoder test on it, which I'm hoping I'll get to the encoder stuff today, but there's so much to tell you. So this little L-shaped piece here is how you sew an encoder test. This tests one coder, north and south one. This tests the east and west one. And the instructions are built right onto this. All 12 pieces are like that, and they take you from A to Z, from the beginning all the way through the advanced and the computer stuff too. So you get to learn how it's the Butler computer, particular on this one. So I keep creating these, and this is how we're reacting to the pandemic. All the kits are $99, and that gives you the Zoom class too. So there's a top fabric, a backing fabric, and I'm sending the batting because I want everybody in class to have the same one. So if we're adjusting tensions, everybody's on the same page. And you get a spool of permacore thread to run, and then I'll help you with those adjustments on the opening of the class, and then I will teach you different designs and some of the proper way to meander. There's 4 different kinds of meandering to do. So you can meander the piece and keep it, so that you can always refer to the listing of 40 parts, and when you talk to a tech, if you have an issue, then we know what you're saying. So that makes sense.
That's great. Jane, we
yeah,
have a
so
couple questions.
we call that hands-on at home. And if you're interested in hands-on at home classes for long arm, then you can just email Angie over there at quiltcentral@outlook.com, and she'll get a hold of you and talk to you and see where you are, because some of you are beginners and some of you are much more advanced than that, or have maybe different computers on your system. So anyways, back to this. I want to talk to you about the bobbin winders.
Can we ask a question real quick? Sorry.
Sure.
So Barb says she has a GAM, and will that kit cover a Premier?
This kit is tech. and it's a little bit different, but it will cover all the basics on a gamble. But you know, there's a few more things on a Tin Lizzie that a gamble doesn't have a foot lifter. And so the Tin Lizzies, they do have a foot lifter. So it gives foot height adjustment and stuff like that in that class, but you wouldn't have that on a gamble. So this Tin Lizzie has an oil reservoir in the bottom and a wick system on the top, where I think the gamels have 11 holes to oil. So there's some differences between the machines, but the basics are still there. So if you, what?
And A1.
Oh yeah, with the A1s or Qniques or whatever. My plan is, if I live long enough, I'm going to work my way all the way through the machines and do all these and have them all taped, so when people have questions, they're easy to
Okay.
get them the information.
That's good to know. So for now, even if they're on a different machine, you still think the tech class would be helpful?
I think the tech class will be helpful, and I don't know if Art can maybe run his camera down. This machine is a Phoenix frame sitting behind me, but I've got some of the different ones that are there. So I have, I just see if I can get over there with my mic and it'll still work. So this is a free motion one. So we teach the basic designs, which Sally Terry has actually called the language of quilting, which there are 5 basic shapes to quilting. We have a pantograph or laser light class where the instructions are here on the side, and you learn to stack your rows, line up for blocks and circles, and stagger your rows. So there we have ones that we have larger pieces of this for long arm, but this one's made up for a sit down. This is how you use a ruler. So we teach ruler work, and we've got little, you can barely see it, little grid on there. So we teach how to use rulers, basic rulers. And then this one would be of big interest to those of you that have either the Shirley Stitcher or the Butler System robotics. So you can see I've got the screens are pictured on the side, and then this piece goes on here. I teach you how to set up for edge to edge, and I teach you all the buttons that are in there, whether it's a Shirley Stitcher, which I have memorized, and also they switch to icon pictures later. So I know both those systems, so I can help you with that. And then I don't have all the pieces here, but like this one is a thread painting class, but it is actually a tension class in disguise, because with that one you will get a little metallic and a little king tut and a little of some other threads in order to be able to learn to switch back and forth with confidence and not be worried about your tension so much. And so you in fact, when someone trained me 40 years ago, they made me take my tension completely out of whack until I had the eyelashes on the back and everything else, and then get it back in and said, no, this is how you get over your fear of changing your tensions. You make yourself completely go out of adjustment, and then you jump back in and you train yourself to get back in. So that's how I learned a really long time ago. So anyways, back to winding bobbins. Okay, so bobbins, I'm going to go back here to the style of bobbin winders. This is called an onboard bobbin winder. And onboard bobbin winders have a O-ring that wears out. So if yours isn't working well, I'm going to teach you how to adjust for this. So they have 3 screws in here, and I've taken them out so I could lift up the bobbin winder and show you what's down there. So this is what's under there, and it has an O-ring on it. Now some of the earlier ones, the O-ring is 1 inch, and some are 1.5, or some of them are big, like 2 inch. And it doesn't matter so much the color. Some of them are blonde, some of them are black. But what happens is your bobbin winder starts to get a flat place in the O-ring. And so the O-rings roll off. Let's see if we can roll that one off. See, it comes off and they're replaceable. They are not regular plumber's washers, but sometimes when they sell these, wherever they sell plumber's washers, you can find them, but you can also buy them from here or too, and I think they're cheap, like $3 a piece or something, and you have to measure across here before you order one and say what you have, because otherwise you'll get one that's too tiny. And so that, and when you put these back in to the hole, you need to get them lined up because the 3 screws have to go in a certain way. And then if there's any slop in it at all, push it towards the back. Push it towards the back because that's where it'll go tighter to the shaft. When the shaft turns and the Tin Lizzie is running and the bobbin is engaged, it will wind the bobbin. So you can wind them ahead if you want, because you can take the thread out of the needle and you can put your machine into manual mode rather than stitch regulated and just turn it on and it'll wind the bobbin. Now, as far as the adjustments go, okay, so a regular cone of thread like this one, when you stick your thumbnail into it, it's pretty tight. And when you wind a bobbin, it should be the same. It shouldn't be saggy baggy, or you'll have all kinds of issues with that. And so this bobbin here, you can see it against the white, is wound heavy on one side and light on the other. You know what I mean? They should wind even, and this one's not winding even, so I'll tell you how to adjust for that. So up here on this is a tension assembly where your bobbin thread is supposed to go through. So I'll say, let me take this cone of thread, and I'm going to put this in the thread loop directly over the top. And then there's different styles of these. Let's see. Some of them have one hole and some two, but you'll get the gist of it, I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to go through that hole. I'm threading backwards, you know, I'm usually on the other side. So, and then I'm going to hang on to it, so I'm kind of flossing and come out. And this style, this is a newer style, has the other hole. So I got to get it in there. And it goes to where I put a bobbin on there. Let's see if I got one over here. What do I do with that? That one's full. So if this was empty, then this goes to here. But this, if it's too far in, if this is too far in, and the adjustment is, there's a set screw on this post, and if you loosen the screw, this will come right out like a cork, just like your other tension assembly on your machine. So you can push it in and out how you need. So if this bobbin is on here and it's not winding full enough, you can adjust it in or out to get it full enough. And then you can also raise this up or down, and then it'll fill more even. So you have to adjust that. Even though they may have adjusted at the factory, this has been shipped to you and used for a while. So this has to be adjusted by the owner. So this is something that once you get it though, you tighten it up, it just stays there. So you're good to go. So if your bobbins are not winding in and out or full enough, and as far as full, you should still be shy of the edge. If it's too close to the edge, the first couple of loops that come off, they can snag on stuff inside the case. So I wind mine shy of the edge, and I don't like it when they're loaded heavy on one side or the other, so I will take the time to loosen the screw and adjust this, and you might have to wind 2 or 3 just to be sure they're correct. Is that right? So So do you understand that part? Because I'll stop if there's any questions on this part of this bobbin winder. I guess I could tell you one more thing. In and out, this will snap off if it's too far out. So I'm going to tell you how we tell people on the phone. I'm going to take this out. See that screw right there? Not that one. That's what I tell them on the phone. See the obvious one, the obvious screw? Not that one. It's this one. That inset screw right there that changes the position of this. So if you want this to be snap off at the perfect time, you may have to adjust that. But I'm going to say it one more time. See this screw? Not that one. Then this one over here, that's the one, the inset one. That'll move the arm. So if you can adjust that, and you have to fool around with it a little bit and to get them just right, but it'll kick right off at the perfect time if you take that, and then it'll never be a bother to you again. So so that's a little bit on the bobbin winders. Any question on that? Okay, so I'll tell you one more trick to that bobbin winder thing. Some people don't like to be changing the O-ring on there, and they have not had the patience to get this winder adjusted perfect first time, so they want to buy a tabletop bobbin winder, which we sell here. And I would say, would you say maybe 80% of the people don't want to change O-rings, so buy a tabletop bobbin winder, which is mounted on a little breadboard, and it's got its own motor, and it's got a foot pedal on it, so you'll get that adjusted a lot easier, and stick the bobbin on and just wind. And those just like never wear out. They just, I get the reflection off of a car in the parking lot here. So I'll move over this way. So that style bobbin winder, they run around $250, but they're like a lifetime 30-year bobbin winder. So if you don't want to use the onboard ones and you'd rather have a tabletop one, you can get one and just use that, and you'll never have to monkey with it, except the first time you wind the first 2 or 3 bobbins, you'll be adjusting it. So that. So was there any more questions on that? No? Okay, so I'm getting down to my last 20 minutes, and I can keep going, or I can take questions and be a little bit more specific. So I think I'll try to take questions that overall.
Yeah, good. We have had a couple questions about the classes that you talked about that you're going to offer. So can you explain again kind of the process of?
Okay, so you email Angie at quiltcentral@outlook.com. And that goes right to our main desk here at the store. And then Angela will send you the information, and she needs some information from you. She needs to know, what kind of classes are you looking for? And are you a beginner or an intermediate or advanced, or you just want to go from A to Z? Because our classes are numbered. This tech class that's on this piece of fabric, this is class 101. And then they progress. Free motion is 10, let's see, am I mixed up? Laser light is 102, because the people want to know how to run. When they get a new machine, the first thing they want to know is they want to do some edge to edge work with the laser light. So I think 102 is laser light. And then free motion, they want to know how to run that machine and know where they're going. And the basics of design are really important. Like, did you know there's only 5 shapes in quilting? A straight line, an arc, a hook, a loop, and an S shape. And when you put those pieces together, you get feathers and you get other designs. But if you learn the basics, then it's not so overwhelming on how to learn the different backgrounds and stuff. So free motion, let's see. And then, so I'm drawing a blank here.
So for all of you, I put the link to the list of classes from the website in the chat.
Actually, they're not on the website.
Oh, these are not. Okay.
No, these are not up yet. So my webmaster comes tomorrow. So hopefully, so I've been trying to learn how to load that stuff in. My website got a little turned around. And like I said, Dave and I are home now, so we can straighten some of that out. But there are 12 classes altogether. There's tension classes, thread play classes, different computer beginning, intermediate, and advanced computer sessions for the Butler system is what we're talking about today, because the Butler is what originally comes on a Tin Lizzie. So not on the Cubots or the other stuff yet, but later. I mean, I'm working on it. So a little at a time, because there's so much to tell you. I could talk for weeks and weeks and never run out of information. So also I want to tell you, for those of you that need a machine diagnosed, again, I'll say this: if you have to have some troubleshooting help, typical diagnostics on a machine, like if you the techs across the U.S., they charge $89 for diagnostics. But typically, if it's simple, we don't charge that. And if it's in depth and we're on the phone for a really long time and you need a part, we don't do that, because we've figured it out and you can get parts. We have upgrades for Tin Lizzies. People that don't have touchscreens, have bad motors, are having trouble with electronics, and all kinds of stuff like that. There's 2 upgrades. And they both take you to the touchscreen, or if you have a touchscreen, it upgrades. You get all new wiring, all new motor, all new everything, back handlebars, front handlebars. You get, and the one upgrade is $3,500. And that one, when you're upgraded, there's no port on it for a computer. So if you're only going to free motion the rest of your life, then you'll be fine with that. The other one has a port on it for a computer. So that one's $4,500. So those are, we have in here 7 Tin Lizzies in here for upgrades right now, because we do them regularly, so we're good at it, and it doesn't take too long to get them done, and they can save the cost of buying another frame and another machine. We also have Phoenix frames for those of you that want to trade up from a wooden frame to a Phoenix frame. We have Phoenix frames, original Phoenix frames, and I'll just tell you, this is a feather in my cap, but the design of the original Phoenix frames was my oldest son, John, his design. So we carry those frames regularly and can ship them out. Or we have delivery guys. We have delivery guys that'll come to you, set it up, swap your frame out. Or if you are just moving from one house to another, of course, there's a fee for that, but they'll come and tear it down while you move to another space or whatever. We have, they do that kind of thing too. So I guess I sound like giving you a sales pitch, but I'm just trying to be helpful, because there's so many of you out there with so many different questions and needing help, and you've been orphaned and I'm adopting. So was there any more questions on there, Dave, that I missed?
Yeah, there's a couple just a couple more here. How long does a check spring usually last?
Okay, we have had check springs last anywhere from 6 months to 6 years, I guess you could say, because everybody's using their machine at a different level. Some of you are using these professionally and you're at it. Some quilts are 4-hour quilts and some quilts are 11-hour quilts. So some of you are like at it like all day long, all week long, and then your check springs are going to wear out a little bit sooner. But you can tighten them up a little bit at first yourself, and then when they'll get to a point where you're like, I'm fooling with that thing all the time, and so I'm just gonna, because you shouldn't have to. You should just be able to get it just right and run with it for 6 months to a year without an adjustment. But it could be you had a weak one from the start, or it's just no one ever told you you could adjust it and tighten it up, and then you never know if they've been moved. We had a lady bring one in here and she said, I can't get this machine to stitch at all, and the thing was completely snapped off at the top, and it was new to her because she bought the machine secondhand and she had no idea. So we just changed it out and it ran like a top. So
that's great. We have here, do you sell parts for Phoenix frames?
Yes, we have just got an order in for odd things, actually. Some of the gears, some of the ratchet dogs that hold the gears in place. For the tracking, we just, how many sets of that did we order?
5, I think.
5 or
sets
10
of-
sets of tracks and stuff like that, and we can get more. When we run out, it takes us 2 weeks to get them from where we get them from, so sometimes it's a little delay. I don't know what this whole Tin Lizzie thing will bring us as far as you know, a business, and hopefully we can help you, and it'll help our store to stay open too. So but yes, we have parts. And we have syllabuses to how to get them back together. So if you're doing it yourself and we mail you a new ratchet dog, to get that spring adjusted just right in there so that it'll snap down like it's supposed to and stuff. So we've got a lot of stuff for Lizzie's.
Good. Yep. Their other person asked if you have parts for the frame. Sue says she's happy to be adopted. Carrie says she's in Virginia and thinking about the upgrade. Dad, do you deliver to Virginia?
I don't have plans on that direction
We,
right away, but it can be shipped in.
so
and
here,
then
yeah.
The upgrade done and then shipped back.
So we have,
Mm.
that's a long way for our delivery guy to go, but we have, sometimes you're on our radar. We know where you live because you've given the information to Angie, and we are selling other brands of machines too. You know, we sell A1s and Qniques and some of these machines. So let's say our driver is going that way, then, you know, you can, they'll be notified that there's a route that way, because we sell batting off the truck. Because, you know, some of the rolls of batting cost $100 to ship them. So we're like, okay, we'll tell them where the delivery truck is going to be. And then if they go to the Holiday Inn where the driver's staying at, let's say 6 o'clock at supper time, they can load their car with batting and they can not have to pay the shipping on it.
We
So-
usually carry
so-
extra thread. We usually carry needles.
Yeah, parts,
and
simple
so
stuff.
different things we carry with us. So if we're in the area, then you can be notified and you can meet me out at the Walmart parking lot or maybe the hotel parking lot where we're staying. And then, you know, we can help you get your stuff that way and save you some shipping.
So here's how the upgrades go. Some people like a road trip and they'll come up to Wisconsin and they'll stay a couple days while the upgrade goes onto their machine, and then they'll get a little mini lesson before they go home with it, especially if it's a computer. If you want to ship it in and you don't have if you have the original box, I mean, pack it and take it to the pack and ship, and have them drop that box down into a fresh new box. They got new rules for insurance. If you're shipping in an old box, you can buy the insurance, but they won't pay out on it if it gets damaged. So we always use the box if we have it that they originally came in, or take it to a mail and pack and ship and drop, they'll put it in a box, and if they pack it, then it is insured. So then ship it in, we'll put it on and we'll ship it back, and then we'll FaceTime you to help you with whatever it is. But some people just like to come up and see what we got going here and visit and learn some things while they're up here. So I will take one-on-one. I can do that, and I could take a couple at a time because I have 3,000 square feet of machines in here. And I know, Art, you could pan over the room if you want. Art will show you what's in here today. And there's machines behind him also, but there's a whole row of stuff in here, and they're all set up so that I can take just about any kind of machine that comes in here and set it up on the kind of frame that it's supposed to fit on, and then we can run it and test it and do our diagnostic stuff on it. So sometimes, like I said, there is a diagnostic fee and sometimes not. So and right behind me, this one here, this is the new upgrade. This was a Tin Lizzie we took in on trade, and then we put the new era upgrade on it. So this one's upgraded. It will never take a computer, but man, does it ever free motion nice. So it has a new screen on it. I don't know if you can see behind me, but the screens are now Wi-Fi or Bluetooth to the machine head, so they mount on a bracket on the end, so you can set your stitches per inch down there, and they can run without that extra weight on the front. So it's really nice. I I think they got adjustable handlebars and stuff, because some of you have problems with your electronics and they're never going to be fixed, or your SD cards and they can never be fixed. So some of you, you know, we can do the other part, but if you are at a end of the road dead machine, which I really wanted to tell them about the fuse.
Mm-hmm.
The fuse, because I had three emails that said their machines were totally dead in the water, and I'm like, did you check your fuse? And they said they didn't even know it had one. So, and the fuses are located in different places on machines, but fuses on this one are over hidden. Yep, they're hidden. So this is where the main power plug is on this, and it's a secret. So right there's a place for a screwdriver, and see, there's a secret drawer, and it comes out. And in there, in this, if you can see it, is the fuse, and there's a hole with a second fuse in it that's supposed to be a new one. So if you had to take this fuse out and check it and see if it's smoky or black, and then there's your spare, and they're either 3s or 5s. You have to read with a magnifying glass on the end, and then you can put this drawer back in, and it'll snap into place. So it's that easy. So those of you that are dead in the water, you want to be sure that you check your fuse before you get into panic mode. So anything else?
We've had some power cords.
Oh yeah, power cords.
After dragging in the back, snagging on something, for some reason their power cord has a short in it, and we've had a new power cord fix the problem as well.
Yes,
so.
if you're dead in the water, the cords drag and they wiggle back, and sometimes they like spark themselves or something. And so those are a standard cord. The Lizzie cords are nice because they're standard. He's used a standard plug-in end. And you can buy those at Best Buy and places like that because they plug into other things.
They're like almost like a computer.
Yeah, they're like a computer cord.
cord.
So if you're dead in the water, you might want to try the fuse and then get yourself a new cord. They just run $12.50 for the short one and $25 for the long one. And then at Best Buy, and then give that a whirl first. Anybody else? Any questions? I'll take anything. Any questions you have? Down to my last couple minutes.
If it's faster, you can unmute yourself and ask if you'd like.
Good? Did you go to sleep on me?
No, I don't think they went to sleep. I think you just covered a lot.
There's a K. See a shadow?
She got a question?
Yeah, no, she's got something in the background behind her. Are you guys outside?
No, they've got their background on. A couple
they turned their back. I could be at the beach too.
I could have a background
yeah,
on.
that's right. Yeah. Okay, we have one more question there. Is there going to be a timing class for Tin Lizzie?
Yeah, we're going to teach timing. I just ran out of time today. If I didn't talk so long, I could have done that. But yeah, there's good timing videos up.
Quick minute and just show them how the timing is supposed to look like.
I don't think we can get in on it. I don't think we can get down that close. Okay, so timing. Okay, we're going to have to look here
what timing is.
and get my finger good. I'll explain.
Turn it towards him.
Tip this.
No, turn.
Look how dirty this machine is.
Just turn it towards him. The nose towards him. So keep going. Okay.
All right.
All right. Have him
So-
put it right down in the hole
so-
best he can.
Let's talk about this.
There.
So
he's
when
got it
you-
good.
Yep, we got it good, Art. Okay, so this is an old dirty machine, but the needle has a groove in the front and a scarf on the back, which is a notch that's out of it. And when this rotates around, and here comes the hook point, and it will pass right in that scarf on the back of the machine. If this is timed correctly, that hook point will hit that scarf right in the middle, and even with the, when you're looking on the nose of it, to the left, on the left-hand side, and that's where that hook point will, if it's, my needle was threaded, it's not threaded, would pick it up off of there. Let's get this out of the way. Here. It would pick that up and it would circle around, and then this wing would take it around and it would make the knot, and it would make your stitch. And then on the second time around again, here comes the hook point one more time. So there goes the eye of the needle down, and then the hook point comes around and catches the back of that needle right in the notch or the scarf, and it would pick that thread off there and push it around to tie the knot to make the stitch. So, and so that's what timing is. So it cycles twice. So then here comes again, needles goes to dead bottom, and then here comes the hook point. Ernie Floyd, who's the son of the Bill, who made this machine, has a timing video on there for Lizzie's on YouTube, and so it's a really good one too. So if you watch that, you can do that. But yes, we're going to do timing. We're going to try to do everything from A to Z, but you can see how long it takes. We've been on 2 hours, and you know, you just get basics to get started with. So this is going to take me lots of these Zoom classes throughout the year, I believe, in order to get through all the things, but I hope you found them helpful.
That's great. Sue asks, is the needle to start upwards once the hook point goes past it?
Yes. The needle will be on its way back up as the hook passes through the scarf.
Yeah, it goes all the way down, and a tech would call that dead bottom, and then it will begin to rise, and that's the first cycle around, and here comes down again, dead bottom to dead bottom, and then it just begins to rise. It just begins to rise, and then it matches that spot right there in the middle of the scarf and to the left side of the needle when you're looking from the front.
There are a lot of videos on timing. I guess that's probably why we didn't focus as much on timing, is because there are so many different people that have put videos out on setting and adjusting timing, but nobody is really showing all the stuff that Jane showed today about the how to get the loops from the check spring to the tension assemblies and the threading possibilities and all that she's shown you today. There's not many people helping out with that, so that was one of the reasons we wanted to do this tech class today for you all.
So if you know somebody who missed this class, if they'll send and they still want it, then I can teach it again, but they need to send their request over to quiltcentral@outlook.com.
We had 150 some participants sign up, but since we were doing the first one on Monday, we got quite a response back about, what about us?
We work.
Well,
we're still working.
We're trying to split it up so we can only do 100. I mean, that's the package. And you can see that 30 or so is a really nice number. And so we're going to schedule again so that we can get some of the others to come on board the next time. And we're planning the dates now. And
so
we have a store, you know, so we have to try to work that all in at the same time.
So we'll try to do some at night and some on weekends when when these working people can attend if they're interested. But you know, you're at all different stages of the game for how seasoned you are in your long arming and what you want to learn. So if you'll just, so I will have an ongoing A to Z class, but I will do some side trips out when I gather a group of people that want to know certain things. So thank you very much, and I hope to hear through email. Anything else? Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks so
Bye-bye.
much. Bye-bye.
Bye.